Welcome back to America's Car Show. Joining me on the set for our Q&As, Mike Ziglis, my colleague and my friend, Director of AAA Car Care Plus. Welcome, Mike.
Great to be back, Tom.
Well, Dr. Z, it's always a pleasure to have you on to join us in the Q&A segment because, well, you're one of the favorites of the viewers. I guess it's that hairdo.
It's my favorite part of the show.
Yeah, indeed it is. Well, let's get to it.
Sure.
Mary from Akron writes, I have an 01 Toyota Camry with 133,000 miles on it. Congratulations, Mary. That's a lot of miles. My Toyota dealer says it's way overdue for a transmission flush, but the fluid is anything but red. It's dark brown. Is it wise to have the work done? Well, Mary, to answer this question is a tough one to arrive at. On high mileage transmissions, fluid change is a crapshoot because one has no way of knowing the extent of internal wear on the transmission. The old fluid gets burnt and worn out. The trans experiences excessive internal wear. This causes the unit to heat up. Heat causes the glue on the clutches to become brittle or crystallized. The rubber seals harden, and when new fluid is introduced into the unit, the high detergency aspect of the new fluid scrubs away the glue from the clutches, the back of the clutches, rendering the trans useless. As for the rubber seals, fluid leaks by them because they have shrunken from the heat. Take it to the dealer, have them drop the pan, and try to get a handle on the extent of the interior wear. Then you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you should flush the fluid. You're an old Toyota man. You know what I'm talking about.
Right, and one of the things that customers and members want to remember about also, Tom, is that you don't just want to have that pan dropped in the fluid drain, because when you do that, there's still residual fluid inside the transmission passages as well as the torque converter. So now when they put that pan up, as soon as they fill in the fresh fluid, the very second they start that motor back up and it starts to circulate, you just contaminated all that brand new fresh fluid with the old stuff. So if you're going to do it, what you want to do is get it flushed, because that takes and pushes every bit of the old fluid out and then exchanges it with fresh all the way through.
Good.
Okay, my question is, Darlene from Derby writes, I have 116,000 miles on my 2001 Ford Ranger with a 4.0 engine. When I start my truck after sitting overnight or after work, approximately 10 hours of sitting, I am beginning to hear what sounds like crankshaft bearing noise that lasts 2 seconds after the engine starts. Do you think synthetic oil will help prolong my engine life? Well, actually, honestly, Darlene, it's just the opposite. If you go to synthetic oil, when you hear noise when the motor starts up, that means that you've already got more loose tolerances between the valves and lifters than are normal. And synthetic oil is a more viscosic oil, and what viscosic means, to make it easy to understand, as opposed to regular oil, synthetic oil is almost like water. It's that thin. Oil is used to make up tolerances between the different moving metal parts that are inside the motor, and when they start to wear, if you use a thinner oil by going to synthetic, you're going to notice that that noise that you hear when you start up in the morning is actually going to last longer, to the point where you eventually might even have engine failure. What you might want to look and see is if you recently just had your oil change, because if you did and now you notice that noise, there are certain oil filters that will have an actual little check valve in them, kind of like our plumbing in our house, so that when the pump stops, the valve closes and keeps the water above. Same thing on a motor. When you shut the motor off, that check valve closes, keeping the oil to the top of the motor so that when you start it up, it doesn't have to start a dry motor and the lubrication's there right away. But don't go to full synthetic, because that'll actually make the problem worse.
You know, Doc, you bring up an excellent point, and that's the difference between buying a good quality oil filter that's going to have the OEM specifications built into it, such as a check valve, as opposed to buying a cheap piece of junk for $1.50 that won't have any of that in it.
Correct.
And that's cheap engine insurance.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on,
Tom,
Doc.
a pleasure as always, sir.
All right. And that's it for this edition of America's Car Show. Listen, if you need to connect with me, Tom at americascarshow.com. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep rolling.